Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals, when this guy broke into a van, he got a lot more than he bargained for. If this is a robber's disguise, do you think his weapons should have been a pail and a shovel? And just one whiff was all it took to know this guy was trouble. P.U. Hold your nose and hold your position. You won't believe how many goofy ways that people can run afoul with the law on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call on your
Now, welcome your host for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
All righty. Okay. Debbie, I'm going to guess something about you.
Oh, no, not another joke about my height.
No. Nothing like that. It's just a question,
Okay, then
all
go
right?
ahead.
Well, I bet you startle easily, don't you?
Are you getting ready to play some kind of trick on me?
No trick. It's just a question. Do you startle easily?
If I see something scary, yeah. No.
Okay, you're funny. Now, well, that makes us a perfect match.
You're easily startled, too?
No, I just like startling people. You know, kind of a hobby, jumping out, going, boo, you know, and jumping back in.
You're bad.
I know, but wait, well, we'll meet a crook later who was startled in a big way, except he didn't hear boo, he heard bang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to avoid both tonight, just so you know. But let's start our show with a bang.
Well, we're about to see a released thief who just can't wait to get back to work.
In fact, he doesn't even want to leave the police station.
No.
Let's steal a peek with this surveillance camera footage.
The videotape that y'all received from the Bel Air Police Department, Corporal Lee is releasing 3 prisoners. Corporal Lee was walking ahead of the 3 prisoners. The last one reaches in to an unlocked property box, removes money out of different prisoner property, and leaves with it. The following day, we end up filing theft on that same guy for taking the money.
Yeah, well, you know, it's those little details that bring down criminals time after time. Or, in this case, one particular criminal time after time.
In a 2-part miniseries of Something to Remember Me By, we meet up with a crook who, just like our first criminal, definitely has not learned from his mistakes. Here's part 1.
Well, here in Sweetwater, we do have our share of stupid criminals. Our detectives went out one day, worked a burglary at a liquor store. It was pretty hard to solve. The guy had been inside, working all night, industrious fella. I guess he was working pretty hard because he got pretty hot. Took his jacket off and left it at the crime scene. Whenever we got there, we found his jacket, looked in the pockets, found his check stub, full name, address, and where he worked. Not too hard to find him in a town of 12,000.
Made it easy.
Hey, you know, I mean, the truth is I leave my jacket behind all the time, but never at the liquor store I've robbed. What? No, that didn't come out right. But I guess that's why my consequences aren't so great either.
Oh, man.
Truth or consequence.
Well, now on to part 2. Okay, I get it. A year has passed, and our crook has served his time, but has the robber seen the error of his ways? I think you already know the answer to that question. Let's confirm your suspicions as we return to Sweetwater, Texas.
We were running a search warrant at a housing project here in Sweetwater. I went outside to my police car to get a camera and heard a car squealing into the entrance of the project. I flagged this car down, the guy got out, and we were standing there talking, and it was very obvious that he was drunk. I asked this guy for some identification. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out a packet of papers, and instead of just handing them to me, he threw them at me, he threw them at me, he threw them at me, and swung at me and took off running. He won the foot chase. I didn't catch him then. However, I went back, picked up all the papers, and one of the papers was his release from Texas prison system, from the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole in his name, so we knew who our guy was. About 10 minutes later, he came back, claimed to be his brother. And anyway, me and several other officers arrested that individual at that time. This guy was really good at doing the same dumb thing twice in a row, just 4 years apart.
It's unbelievable.
What's worse than running from police? Well, running into police. This criminal did both. And oh, did I mention that he was driving drunk?
Ooh, okay. Witness, as this guy is forced to surrender after his bender turns into a fender bender. Watch.
The police officer following this car senses something isn't quite right. The guy behind the wheel is a little too tentative in his driving, a little too meandering in his maneuvering, a little too freeform in his turns. Sort of like my great Aunt Sophie, except Sophie's pushing 90, and this guy's just pushing the accelerator, possibly under the influence of some tonic that Sophie would never touch. So the officer follows him just to confirm his suspicions and see if he makes any wrong moves. Yow! He just rammed a squad car of another officer who has stopped yet another person for DUI. Yep, I'd say that was a wrong move. Phew, glad to know that wasn't my great Aunt Sophie. At least not this time.
Here's another dumb law. In Fairbanks, Alaska, it is illegal to give any form of alcoholic beverage to a moose.
Okay, yeah. There's nothing worse than a moose on the loose who can't hold his juice, you know? Liquor, yeah. Well, our next story involves a crook on the loose in a liquor store, but he doesn't see it that way. In fact, he tells officers that he was just minding his own business. Take a look.
Rolled up to the scene of this convenience store, and the first thing I observed was the front glass door smashed right out of it. Called for backup, and I grabbed my trusty shotgun and walked up the door, and as I come around the door, I seen a gentleman without a shirt on with 3 cases of beer in his hand. And I cranked that shotgun, and he goes, "Whoa," he says, "Hey, I work here. There must be some mistake." And I says, "You know, set the beer down and stick your hands in the air." And so he tries to comply, and he's got this stupid look on his face like he can't believe I don't believe him. You know, he thinks I'm some idiot, I guess. And so, nevertheless, he puts the beer down, and I get him where he's secured, and I start questioning him about this. So I went for my backup, and he says, "Yeah, I work here." And I says, "Oh, you explain why you knocked the whole front of the door out, you know, the whole building here?" He says, "Well, I left my keys home, and I had this graveyard shift, and my assignment was to come and sort all the beer out. So I was going to move it all outside here and then rearrange it in the store." And subsequently, we did arrest the gentleman that night, and he did admit to burglarizing 7 other businesses in the area, so it was a great bust. That's probably about the dumbest excuse I've ever heard as a police officer.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm just sorting out the beer in the refrigerator, honey. Maybe that bogus liquor store owner should have taken the 5th, huh? What do you think, Debbie? Get it?
Oh, I get it.
5th?
That was a good one. Every once in a while, Dan. Here on America's Dumbest Criminals, we see all kinds of crooks using all kinds of methods to conceal their identities. And it takes extra creativity to come up with a disguise that really surprises us. This one is almost as much fun as, well, a day at the beach. Does this look like a disguise to you? This beach ball with eye holes the size of sand dollars was the getup a robber used to deflate the till at a Florida bank. And on his second strike, he even added the unusual handwear shown here. Amazingly, he pulled this stunt twice.
They kind of thought this was early for Halloween or just a gag or a joke. When he did his second robbery again, he came in with his hands covered. This time he used a garbage bag.
Police, unwilling to bury their heads in the sand, dug up enough evidence to capture this beach ball bandit soon after his second robbery.
Okay. Police in Henderson, North Carolina were having a hard time catching up with a woman who had a wealth of warrants out on her. Then they came up with a bright idea. If they couldn't get to her, maybe they could convince her to come to them. All they needed was the right incentive. So they devised a plan that was music to her ears.
One of our jobs were to serve high-risk warrants or warrants that no one else was able to serve on people around here. So I was looking through the drawer, and I found a stack of warrants that were unserved and was on a female. And I told the guys, I said, well, before we go out to this house and start searching for her, I said, let me just call this number. This is her home address. So I called the number, and a female answered the phone. And I gave her the name on the warrant. I said, is this such and such still stay here? She said, no. She said, she moved. She used to stay here, but she moved. I said, well, that's a shame. I said, because a good friend of hers just entered her into a contest, and she's won a beautiful stereo system from one of the local radio stations. Now we're going to have to return the stereo, because we don't have anyone to give it to. Ho, that's me, I'm just playing with you, that's me. So I said, I tell you what, I said, I need your identification. I said, we got a little paperwork to do. I said, we'll bring the stereo right over if you could just give us the address you're at. So she gave me the address. I got one of the guys, we're in a marked cruiser, we go around the block, take my shirt off, pull a regular pullover shirt off, got my gun and equipment under the clothes, and I walk up to this lady's house. Now the cruiser's about 30 to 40 feet away from this lady on the corner. I mean, anyone could see, people are slowing up to see what we're doing. So while I'm walking up to this house, this woman almost tackled me. She's running up, is that my stereo, is that my stereo? Well, I said, no ma'am, I said, but you're under arrest. And I put the handcuffs on her, put it in front of her, was walking her back to the car. Now she has a stack of warrants. Her bond is going to be unbelievably high, especially failure to appear, a lot of them. And the only thing she's telling me and my partner all the way back is, hey, that's still my stereo, isn't it? That's my stereo, that's still mine, isn't it? That's still mine. So we served the warrants, and the arrest was made without complications, and we were surprised it worked, but we tried it and everything worked out well.
Okay, get your dictionary ready, because later on we're going to tell the onerous and odoriferous tale of a guy whose M.O. spells trouble. Or should it be his B.O. smells trouble? But now, with news that does for mankind what the iceberg did to the Titanic, oh great! Here's Daniel with ADC headlines.
Sure, we all enjoy a hot meal, but get this. A Massachusetts police officer pulled over a man for driving his car at 120 miles an hour. His defense? He just bought a roast beef sandwich, and he had to get home to eat it before it got cold. Okay, a woman tried to pass a $1 million bill in New York City at a department store, but she ran into two problems. One, federal agents were not amused when the woman claimed that making money was her hobby. And two, the U.S. Treasury Department does not make $1 million bills. So it's a dead giveaway. Finally, two men were caught red-handed and red-faced as they tried to smuggle snakes from Mexico into Texas by tying the critters into pantyhose and stuffing them into their trousers. Okay, customs inspectors noticed the unsightly bulges wiggling and ordered the men to drop their pants. Their total menagerie was 14 snakes, including a boa constrictor. Wow, it was an exciting trip for them. A crafty inspector commented that the men were first suspected of packing narcotics, but, quote, drugs don't move around like that. Well, that closes the file on ADC Headline News, ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
There was definitely trouble in the air when our next criminal came along. In fact, his personal hygiene, or lack thereof, earned him the title of the Stinky Bandit. Take a look.
For a brief time, this man's picture was flooding the airways in South Florida, just as his presence tightened the air passages. The Stinky Bandit, a man whose reputation and body odor preceded him. Lost in a funk of crack addiction, he stuck up and stunk up 12 banks and stores before hitting the showers when police closed in on him and his girlfriend.
He has a very bad crack cocaine habit. In fact, when he was arrested today, we have crack cocaine on his person, and he readily admits that he has a very bad crack cocaine habit.
To the best of our knowledge, all the money, with the exception of about $200 that was recovered as a result of the arrest today, is gone.
Well, if success smells sweet, imagine this odor of being one of America's dumbest criminals.
Oh, gee whiz. Let's let the air clear for a minute there. You know, usually it's the crook who catches the victim off guard, right? But not in this story. When this car burglar makes his moves, things go off with a bang and then get even more complicated. It's yet another surprising chapter in the feature we call I'm Where? You're Who?
This guy tried to break into a van, but little did he know it was occupied by the owner. He woke up the owner of the van sleeping inside who happened to have a gun. The owner came out, said to the bad guy, "Stop or I'll shoot." Well, the guy ran away, scared to death, and ran straight to a gas station, yelling, "Call the police, call the police." Well, the attendant there did. We arrived and put that call together with the burglary. Got the owner of the van over there to make the identification and took that burglar to jail. You know, Debbie, we don't make this stuff up. In this case, the dumb crook ended up being the reporting party. Called the police on himself.
We love it when they help out. Well, while the beach ball bandit you saw earlier showed originality in the getup for his holdup, this next guy went with something very basic, a bed sheet. Watch as this New Orleans police officer becomes a real ghostbuster.
We're here in New Orleans, Louisiana, at world-famous Brennan's Restaurant. We're world famous for breakfast at Brennan's, and we do a wonderful dinner also. My grandfather started the restaurant in 1946, and even at a restaurant of this caliber, things can go wrong.
Hi, my name is David Sled, and I've been associated with Brennan's for 22 years. And this is a wonderful story that happened many years ago. It was in the fall of our year, and we had been very, very busy. And one of our busboys that night decided that he was going to rob the restaurant. While everyone had punched out, the maitre d' was the only one he thought that was still in the house. And he had counted the money, while the busboy had slipped back into the area where the maitre d' had to pass through to take the money to the safe. And that was also the area where we kept our linen. Well, Earl decided to take a sheet and pull over himself and play a ghost to scare the money out of the maitre d'. Well, when the maitre d' passed through the area, Earl jumped up and said, "Boo, give me your money or I'll kill you." Well, of course, the maitre d' recognized Earl's voice and questioned Earl. He said, "Earl, why are you behind that sheet?" Well, it scared Earl so bad that Earl dropped the sheet, ran back through the restaurant, bolted out the front doors, and Earl was gone from the restaurant. Boo, boo.
Details on this edition of We're Not Making This Up are absolutely unspeakable. So I'll let Daniel give them to you.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, it's a known fact that people do dumb things when they're drunk, right? And when they're really drunk, they do really dumb things. And this guy may break all existing world records, kids. Watch the screen and prepare to wince.
One story that comes to mind is one night, Scott Thurber and myself were on a tour midnight shift.
Look what we got here.
A guy was in the parking lot across from the police department. And we looked and he's defecated in the parking lot. So we pulled out and we told him that it wasn't quite the thing to do there and that he could get arrested for that.
Oh man, don't take me to jail, man. I can clean it up.
He reaches down and scoops it up and he puts it in the back of his pickup. At this point, we didn't want anything more to do with him. So we told him he'd been drinking too much and not to drive. He says, "No, officer, I'll stay right here for the evening."
Right here.
Went by later on that night. And he was sleeping in the back of his pickup. And we went by again to check on him, and he saw us, and he looked out of the bed of his pickup and wiped his face and rolled over and went back to sleep.
We're not making this up, kids. We wouldn't dare. Well, we're going to go away and just try and scrub this whole incident from our minds. But we'll be back next week with more stories of incredibly dumb, gross criminals doing incredibly dumb, gross things.
If you've got a lead on a story better than that one, or you just can't wait till next week for more state-of-the-art stupidity, visit our website at www.dumbcrimes.com.
Yeah, and even though our stories are about dumb crimes, they're really a reminder of the debt that we owe to the men and women of law enforcement. They're on the line every day to keep us safe from the stupidity of would-be criminals. We owe them our thanks for making this show possible. And we thank you for joining us tonight.
As always, we hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
But if you haven't, you might look like that last guy. And we might see you next week on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Bye-bye.